Okay, we have sound. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so who here is registered for the trip? Wonderful. Who here is thinking about registering for the trip? Great. Okay. Yeah. You are. Yeah. So this is basically we're going to go through just a few things about the archives itself, the rules to get familiar with the archives, and you can take the core concepts for a lot of this that apply across all archives. A lot of it is very much the same. How they operate is very standard. So if you're thinking about going to another archive in another country, another province, it's all relatively the same. And then we'll go into some of the collections that are available at the Archives of Ontario, some research tools, some research guides, and then kind of walk through any questions anybody has about which particular collections and what could be available if you're interested in a particular collection. Okay? So this is the Archives of Ontario building. It is located on York University campus, which is at Steeles and Keele. And it's a fancy building. The inside, when you first walk in, this is basically the sitting area where you have a lot of the resources at the desks. So a lot of the land records, indexes, any of the indexes you want to find or pathfinders to a particular record collection are kept at these desks. Okay, namely the first row here, and then the second row on the other side has limited. But basically, when you first get in there, if you haven't prepped at home beforehand, that's the first place you want to go. Okay, because that's where you're going to find any of the pathfinders to all the record collections at the archives. That's first when you walk in, right on your right-hand side. If you haven't seen this is the famous wall in the Archives of Ontario, and people have submitted photos from their family history that have been published on here on their timeline. So it actually starts out right at the time when Ontario was first founded and goes through all the different years, right around the whole bend up to, I think it was like 1940. And so there are people who I know who have photos that are on that wall. So you can walk in and you can see, imagine down the road you could say, oh, my grandson, put this photo of our family on the wall, that type of thing. So have a look. Interesting place to have a gander. This here is when you first walk in. The research desks are off to the side here. There's a bank of computers here. If you haven't, again, prepped at home, you want to use those desks. And these computers have access to, in the internet, you can access Ancestry, Family Search, all the main sites through there. And it actually has a lot of the finding aids that you're going to find on their website that I'm going to show you are there as well. So if you forget to bring something, that's also a very good place to go. Okay, and inside this wall here are where all the microfilm readers are. Okay, and there's banks and banks of them. Do not worry. The best thing, the funniest thing that we realized when we talked to a lot of people is people don't realize they can actually go there to the Archives of Ontario, because you look at the outside of the building and it's like cold, and you walk in and there's like reception desk and everything's locked off. It's totally open, and they're really friendly. They want you to go. So they get funding based on attendance, so that's like they want you there. So we're actually in the midst of still coordinating the bus with First Student Canada, but the schedule that we have here should be in fact in place. We will send an email blast out once the bus is confirmed, the exact, if anything changes from this. Okay, so we're looking at the 8:30 pickup at Fortino's in Upper James and Rymel. That is the Hamilton pickup, and park closer to Kelsey's. Okay, which is more on the Upper James side of the parking lot there. We're aiming for a 9:10 pickup at Burlington Mall. And I get park in the old Target Zellers parking lot. There's nothing really there now, but against that main driveway, okay, are the Guelph line side of the mall. And of course, you'll see, I'll be there waving. I'm sure you guys will be at the Hamilton one. So yeah, if you don't see me there standing outside, even if it's raining, I'll stand outside. Just yeah, look for me. I'll wear a bright color. We're looking for a 10 a.m. arrival at Archives of Ontario, and we'll talk about this, but you have to register before you go, okay, with the archive separately. And if you haven't, you're going to have to do this on site. If you have, you're going to pick up your card at this time, which is your researcher card. I forgot to bring mine to show you. Just white card, but it has your name on it. It is your research card to get into the reading room, and you can use it forever and ever. Oh, you have yours? Yeah, for sure. You can. So I'll make sure the link is in the email blast that's going to go out after this. And it's the best thing to do is to register online before you go. It takes about a week for them to get everything set up. So by next weekend, everything will be there. Yeah, just a simple card. On the back, if we register, it has your name, and then you'll have your AO number. So every time you go, you just go in, you go beep, scan you in, and then beep, scan you out. And then
if we register online, will the cards be there?
They'll be there, yeah. And they'll actually, I'm not sure if they're going to print them ahead of time or they're going to print them right there, but it's instant, yeah.
So if you have a card, I don't need to do anything.
Nope, you just beep, scan yourself in, and you're good to go. At 10:15, we're going to have the orientation start, which is, and the reading room tour. The orientation is the Archives Client Services Department, and they're going to talk about basically how to start your research from home, not genealogy specific, but how to use the archives from home. So there's many different collections the archives has, including like moving picture galleries, exhibits, paintings, people who have different interests, obviously, other than genealogy. So if you have an interest in some of their artwork, they have an amazing collection that's kept, and you can actually go book a tour or a separate thing to go see it. And they're going to talk about all that kind of stuff. And different collections you can actually research other than genealogy, but it's a very good overview. It's part of their client services offering, so we're going to accept that. And they're going to give us a reading room tour. So they're going to walk us around everywhere and basically show you, okay, this binder is this binder is here, here's the microfilm or microfilm readers, how to load them properly if you've never used one before, and talk about where the microfilms are, cabinets, and all that kind of thing, because it can get a bit tricky. At 11:30 a.m., the time is yours from that point on. So some people by that time are going to be a bit peckish. You can go have lunch, and I'll talk about that in a second, or start your research, go for lunch whenever you want. And we have a 3:30 pickup or pack-up time because we're going to be boarding the bus at 3:45. Okay, the archives closes at 4. So I'm come around 3:30. I'm going to go, hey, everybody start packing up, but keep researching because we can use right till 4. They're going to let us basically, we can hang in the foyer right till they kick us out at 4 o'clock. So lunch, it's bring your own lunch on the bus or purchase a lunch at York Lanes, which is the university's food court basically, and it's located right outside the main doors. It's less than a 5-minute walk. It's literally outside in another set of doors, and you have everything there, all the main kind of restaurants. There's a Hero Burger, I think, Starbucks, Second Cup, all sorts of things that are, and they're good price too. Rules. We're going to keep it light though. Okay. So there's no bags, no coats, no food, drink, or pens allowed in the reading room. You can bring them. They just can't go in with you behind the glass doors. Okay. Lockers are being provided there. And you just pick up a key. They don't charge you for it, but they give you a key and you can go lock your stuff away. This is the best time when I say to somebody, if you can be a minimalist, this is the best time to do that. Because for me, I always bring a big bag with me, and I can never fit it in the locker, number one. And number two, it's just why do I keep bringing it every time? So that's key, and no pens. So if you have a pen like in your portfolio or in a bag, take it out. You don't want them to pull. You don't want to use it when you're in there by accident, especially when you have the microfilms, microfiche you're looking at. You don't want to mark anything up because they get pretty angry about that.
When you say bags, are you including purses?
I'm including purses, yeah. So there are lockers, and it's key lock type thing, so you can lock your stuff away. Based on the group we have, everyone should have a locker. If there aren't enough lockers, I'm willing to sacrifice, obviously, and we can put your stuff in the classroom area that we're going to be in, and that's just ours, okay? So once you lock it in there, no one can go in unless they get access by the front desk to go in and get their stuff. Okay, so there's options. Okay, there's no flash photography allowed. So if you find a record and you say, okay, I'm going to use my phone or something to take a photo, turn the flash off. Okay, it's only, you can use your camera on your phone to take photos of things, but just not, no flash. And you can't take photos of the archives. It sounds a bit, people are, oh, that's strange, I don't know why, but that picture, the wall with all the pictures on it, those are all copyrighted, right? So if you take a photo of that, you're taking a photo of a copyrighted image, then you get into the whole issues of reproduction rights. But records you can. So I found something great. There's three options you have to save this. One, transcribe the information in a book. Bring a book with you. It's always handy, a big pad of paper. You can save the image to a USB for free. Bring a USB. If you don't, I think the archives may have a couple, around, but they don't just give them out to everybody. You kind of have to beg and plead. So bring a USB stick. If you don't, I think they're like $5 or $6 at Staples. Doesn't need to be a lot of room on it because the images are quite small, but make sure to bring one. If you want a paper copy, USB doesn't appease to you, 56 cents a page to print. Okay. So I can't find what I'm looking for. This is a question I've had a few people I've gone with to help, and they go, okay, I'm looking for something, but I can't find it. Well, number one, it may seem really obvious, but this is the Ontario records at the Ontario Archives. So people have gone before and say, I'm looking for a record in Quebec. Well, you're not going to find it here. It'll be in the archives in Quebec. And the next part is Canada records. So there are two provincial tiers of government. So provincial records are kept here. Federal records are kept at Library and Archives Canada in Ottawa. Okay, so that's talking about censuses when Ontario was part of Canada, when it was part of its own province, when it was just Ontario and Quebec at the time, and it wasn't part of Canada. Those records are at the Archives of Ontario. So there's two different tiers of records. You're going to have to just figure out which one is what you're looking for in particular, and we'll walk through some of these here. Again, other province records are not at the Archives of Ontario. Plain and simple. And if you're wondering, Upper Canada records, yes, Archives of Ontario, and a lot of them went to Library and Archives Canada because the duplicate copies went to LAC because it became part of the government's responsibility to maintain records at that time, and Ontario just didn't want it. So they have duplicate copies. So to prepare, what to bring, how to search, where to look. We're going to cover these. Set a goal, number one. So pick specific items to research. Don't walk in with you can bring a laptop, by the way. That's great. There's plugs, they have Wi-Fi, don't worry about that. Don't walk in with your ancestry and go, okay, I'm going to start with this person, then go here, and then here, and then here, and see what I come up with. No, you want to walk in and say, I'm going to look for this, I want to look for this kind of record related to this person for this particular time period. Okay, that's the key, because otherwise you're going to be there wasting time trying to figure out which person you're going to look for, okay, or identifying what you're there. If I walk in and say, I'm going to look for records related to my 2x great-grandfather, great. But now I need to know, okay, I know the time period, I may know his name, but what records do they have that I want to really focus in on? I could look at census records, but again, those are on ancestry, right? I could look for birth records, death records, marriage records, but again, a lot of those are on ancestry or family search. So I'm not going to waste my time with that. I'm going to look for other records that could be available, and we'll talk about those. And then organize them in priority to you. So if I go on and I pick, let's say, 3 people, and I'm going to look for these particular record categories for that person, I'm going to put them in priority. I want to look for this person first, and this record, then this one, and then this one. Pick about 10, okay? Because if you come to number 1, you're successful. Number 2, you just can't find anything, go to number 3, right? Pick 10 things to walk in with. Otherwise, you are going to run out of material pretty quick, I think. People think you can go there and just be like, okay, that's the record I'm going to find it, and that's it, but sometimes it's just not there. Sometimes someone else is using the microfilm you want to use, and they have a few copies of everything, but if it's just in use, you have to wait. And if it's at 3:30, you may not get it, right? So you want to be able to go through and document everything you want in priority. Know what you want. This goes back. So research types of records together, okay? So if you're going to look for land records, go after all the people you want to look for and all the land records for them. Don't go, I'm going to look for this ancestor, land records, wills, corporation records. No, take all your land records, do them all at once, because when you start pulling microfiche out and to find the actual microfilm you're going to use, you want to basically write everything down that's related to it. Otherwise, you're going to be going back to that binder all day, and it just saves time. Pick all the like records together. And then, what are you looking for? Pick that out. Identify what it is you want to find. Okay. And we can, obviously, if you have questions about this, we can talk about it after, but I want to kind of get through most of this. But pick something in particular you're going to look for. And what are you hoping to find? That's, I think, a very good question people need to ask themselves before they go, is what are you really hoping to find when you go there? If you're looking to find, in particular, a death record or to a death registration that's already been done, you know, if you see a death record on Ancestry and it happens to be just those narrow columns between like the 1880s, 1890s, that's it. There's nothing more, right? So people tend to say, well, I found the index. I'm going to go there and find the certificate. That's it. So you're not going to find anything more. So really vital stats is not a huge thing I push when you go to the archives, because a lot of it is online already. If it is a year that the only benefit around vital stats, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you check out Ancestry or Family Search and you see the page, it's really, really dark. You know, it was scanned wrong, or there's a black smudge on it, or you can't make it out. Perfect opportunity to look at the microfilm, because generally that was scanned for Ancestry is going to be different than the one you have here. And I was lucky enough that I actually found one. My two times great-grandfather, his birth registration has a big line through part of his name, his middle name in particular. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could, you know, just know what it was. Perfect opportunity. Okay. Other than that, vital stats, not really a big thing you want to use. So use the online resources to do prep work. This is why usually our meetings for the Hamilton GS are the third Thursday of the month. We're meeting now to give you more time to prep for next weekend. Okay. And again, don't waste time at the archives choosing what you want to find. People say, okay, I'm going to the archives to research, and they get there and then decide what they're going to research when they get there. And you know, you're in 2 hours later going, okay, now I know what to find, and now I'm going to go find the records. Well, TikTok, right? You have time beforehand to do that. Let's go through and actually find out what they have. So this is a generalization of kind of what they have, and they have different numbers for every record collection. And I'll show you a better page that kind of lists these out. But again, they have UEL records related to the Loyalists that settled, patient and health records. So these are records from hospitals, selected hospitals. Not all hospitals have been sent here. Basically, you can summarize this up by government records for the province of Ontario and some public sector corporation records, like any government-based, Ontario government-based corporation. Okay. Early land settlement records. Linda spoke last month about land records here. That's a very good place to, everyone seems to want to rush to for land records because it's a huge resource there. You can actually get the full maps. You can kind of break out and see what land there really was settled. Newspaper holdings, they have pretty much every newspaper across Ontario there housed on microfilm. Wills from courts, again, if you're looking for a particular time period, there's some tools you can use to identify. It's called a pathfinder. If I'm looking before this period, I'm going to go here. If I'm looking after this period, I'm going to go here. There's lots of tools like that to help. Criminal justice records or court records that happened for criminal cases, any land registrations, and then it talks about immigrant records in Toronto, the immigrant office records. These are basically records that came into, or people who came into Ontario into Toronto, for example, or any of the Canadian Ontario ports before it became the actual Canadian Immigration Office, and it was housed through the federal government. The Toronto immigrant office records are, but there are some immigration records that aren't on here. Then the second Aaron Devezy Commission case files. Some people don't really know what the Aaron Devezy Commission was, but basically when people started to move here, generally loyalists, there's a big migration at the one point, and they said, okay, we need to set up something to actually control the land and who's getting what, and we're going to give land away. Well, that was part of the Crown patent at that point, but people were already here. So what they did is set up the Aaron Devezy Commission in 1797, and they went through and said they would index with justices across Ontario to identify who lived where, how much land do you have, how much, you know, and start to draw out some borders. That's when that really happened. Then come 1802, that's when the Crown patent really became set up and established, and they said, okay, we're going to restrict some of your rights, okay, Aaron Devezy Commission, we're going to give you a little bit less control over this, and they basically created the second Aaron Devezy Commission from 1802 to 1911, which is, you know, a good 100-year chunk basically, and there's different records in there related to wills and land attestation. So for people who, for example, own land, it was registered, now they've died and left a will, it wouldn't have gone through the traditional process of probate through the court system because it was done before there was a government of Ontario, so it went through this branch here. Then I think in 1911 they actually made it mandatory to go through Ontario courts. And then public sector records. So I think of one in particular that I know. Ontario Power, for example, would be a collection that they have. They have CN there as well because there's some part of it was owned by Ontario at one point. So those records are, I think, their largest collection, are CN employee records. Okay, so this is the main page of the archives site. That is the web address. And we're going to send all the links out. So again, don't worry about writing all this stuff down. I'm going to jump over to their website.
Right.
Yes.
Is there
Oh.
military records still?
And those, a lot of them are part of the War of 1812 records. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of those are going to be, there's a pathfinder for those to access, depending if they were a loyalist, if they weren't a loyalist, but they still fought. There are files there as well for that. Because we're going on a Saturday, there are going to be no retrievals from on-site storage, okay? So this is where it starts to get a bit complicated, but if you find something and you need the actual physical document to get pulled, they won't go and pull it on Saturdays. But you can ask them to order it and you can go back and see it. That's not a problem. They're more than happy to do that, but they just won't go and actually pull anything. We might get lucky and they might decide on the day that they will. They've added a lot more archivists on hand for us. So everyone, if you have any questions when you get there, do not hesitate to ask them. Usually they have, I think, 3 or 4 on site. They're probably going to have about 10 on hand. So we figure if we're 40 people going, it's 1 for every 4. That's good.
What type of records would they have to pull?
So if I find, let's say, a will in an index, right, and I want to see the actual copy of the will, the physical one, that would be in on-site storage. There are some records that are in off-site storage, and even if you show up on like a Monday and ask for it, they will not give it to you same day. Sometimes they will if it's, you're there at 9, it'll be there by the time it closes, but generally it's not same day for that kind of stuff. So on-site storage, we might get lucky and they may let us go and pull some records, but if not, it would be a trip to go back and pull that out. But at least you have the information at that point to actually, you've done all the legwork, and now you're going to reap the reward with the second trip back. Let me pull this up here.
Is there any way you can find that out online ahead of time?
You sure?
Saturday?
It depends on the record collection. Good question. There are some, so there are some here. I'll go through here. First tab. There are some collections that you could potentially order ahead of time by emailing the reference desk and asking them, if you know exactly the right record in the right record group, you could say, hey, I'm looking for this and this and this. Can you go and pull it? And because, if you ask them on Monday or on Tuesday, Tuesday, they'll have it there for the weekend. But other than that, it might be very, very hard to actually, to be confident at least. So when you go in, choose a language, English or French, whatever your preference is. The registration form, if I go through the main page, grab a seat there. Come on in.
Thank you.
Let's go back here. Okay, so the main site here, there's actually, most people just see these down the side and they start clicking to say, okay, family history, go, 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 go. Slow down. When you're on the main page, you see family history, don't click it just yet. Look at the top. It says prepare for your visit, okay? And it'll help guide you through some of the items that you may need. We're going to try to prepare you the best we can. So when you scroll down, of course, it talks about ordering materials in advance, any retrieval information, service and fees are mainly the printing ones, and then it talks about the reading room hours. We're going to have you there in and out during reading room hours. Location, don't worry, the bus driver will get us there. So the main one here is online registration. And basically the form, scroll down, it's just your first and last name, your phone number, your address, and then what you're basically some demographic information they use. Are you interested in family history? Are you interested in the exhibits? They have a great Canada 150 exhibit happening right now, one of the galleries there, so they potentially could have it open for us. So if you're interested in that, you could put that as your primary research interest. How did you hear about us? There's lots of options. Mainly could be referral, website outreach, that type of thing. And just submit that here. And once you do that, it goes right to their office, their front desk there, and they'll start prepping this stuff for Saturday. So, go back here. I'm hoping there's a back button. There we go. You can't see it. Oh, that's why I can't see it. Oh, it's over there. Oh, it's over here. There we go. Now I won't be challenged. Great. Okay. So the main page again, when you get here, there are some items that they're trying to highlight down below here. Get familiar with their website. Have a look around. It's a really, for a government website, it's really well done. They put it that way. It's easy to access and navigate. It's not like you got 1,000 screens that I got to go through. So if you are interested in tracing your family history, yes. Okay, you're going to open this up, and then there's two sections here. Getting started, which gives you about 10 tips about how to prep, really, and what kind of records they have. So this is kind of your in-your-face getting started. You can go down to the records. Okay. And this page is really well laid out. It has headings here to talk about the different sections. So like for vital stats, you'll see here that they actually, if this does nothing more than help you guide you through like a pathfinder for your own research and you choose not to come to the archives, this is really helpful. So if I'm looking for birth registrations, in particular 1869 and 1917, through a microfilm, right? You can see the PDF, and you can identify which microfilm you're going to look for by year. Then you're going to take that information and go find the microfilm at the archives and go pull that. Okay? Birth registrations online, 1869 to 1911, on Family Search. On Ancestry, up to 1913. So what is that? So that tells you between 1913 and 1917 are not online compared to their website here. So if you're looking for something around the 1914, 1915, go here, right? Usually the last year they have listed here are usually closed for imaging to be scanned. So if you see the last year on here, you're going to basically be out of luck, unfortunately. But this basically helps guide you to where you're going to go, right? Because if you're sitting on Family Search looking for a 1913 birth, you're not going to find it. You're going to find it on Ancestry, okay? Birth registrations and indexes that are on microfilm, it talks about the different periods, the 1801 marriages to 1869, which is the pre-Confederation type of records, basically, before civil registration began. And then you have your post-civil registration or civil registration period up to 1932. And I think 1933 is closed right now. Okay? And then it talks about which ones are kind of out by every company here, Family Search, Ancestry. I think there's different, this actually looks like a duplicate of mine here. Then death registrations as well. Okay, so this is really, really good for helping to pathfind where you're going to find records, because some people who stick with Ancestry and say, I'm going to find it here, well, you probably could in most cases, but if you're on Family Search, you might be out of luck sometimes. Ancestry does have the ear of the archives more than Family Search does. So it goes down here and you can talk about some church records. The OGS cemetery transcriptions, I'm going to say, do not waste your time going to those at the Archives of Ontario. They are outdated, okay? Because at one point, the OGS branches submitted copies to the archives, but they were continually doing work out there. You want to contact the local OGS branch to actually find the most up-to-date information. And you're going to see here, they're called research guides, okay? And they're broken out for every section here. So if you're curious about birth, marriages, and deaths, you're going to click on the research guide. And this is part of the prep work you can do. Let me take a minute to load here. It looks like a daunting document, but it's actually really, really good. Really good. So it talks about, if I scroll down a little bit here, church records, talks about the archives has a few parish registers and other church records, baptism, burials, from the traveling circuit. There's Wesleyan Methodist records. You can access the finding aid on here for them. The website has tons of finding aids. And I'm actually going to jump right over to that because it's the easiest to get to. So when you are accessing our collection is a key spot here. I'm going to send these links out, so don't worry. And you're going to scroll down. They have all these little pictures here. Section here called Research Guides and Tools. Okay. Once this loads. They've broken them up into different headings. Customer service guides talk about reading rules and all the things about the archives, the rules and regulations and operating. Okay. You're going to skip over that and look at what's called the research guides. The first thing I always say is go here because they've allocated them down here, research guides, in different orders by number of how they categorize the collection. It doesn't help you, right? If you're looking for a birth record, birth finding aid, it's not going to be in the right order because it's based on numbers. Go to thematically and it breaks it out into the different headings that will be probably helpful for you. Bills and statutes, so again, a lot of the government records themselves, company records from the corporation of the government of Ontario. So I believe any employee records from the government employees would be in there. Court records. So there are some great ways about how to find a will in the court records in particular. Again, we learned last month from Linda, you're going to find also wills in land registrations, primarily 80% of the time. They are not going to be in these types of court records, okay, for wills. There's divorce files in Ontario, and if you're curious about that type of record collection, click on the PDF that's here, and it'll give you a little finding aid. And these are invaluable. Some people, when they walk in to the archives, into the reading room, you just walk in, and there's all the computers and everything. You see that. On the wall, right to your right, are shelves of all of these printed, okay? So if you find one, you get there and you say, I want to look for a different type of record collection, you can pull one of these up on paper, walk and mark it up with you. But always look at that wall for all the most recent ones here. So if I look here, when did the divorce take place? Gives you good information here. In order to find a divorce file, you need to know when the divorce took place. Clearly, there are 3 sources of records for divorces in Ontario. The period between 1867 and 1930, so the first civil registration period up to 1930, 31 to 1980, and 81 to present. Okay. For divorce files that were granted between 67 and 30, they're going to be, you'll see here, until 1930, only the federal parliament, so LAC, okay, could grant a divorce in Ontario. So you're not going to necessarily find that at the Archives of Ontario. It's going to be at LAC. They give you a guide here to access that content, the index for it, to actually find the microfilm. The good thing is you can actually do interloan for a lot of the microfilm at LAC to your local library. Same with the Archives of Ontario. So if you find a microfilm there you want to look at and you don't have time, write it down, give them a call and say, I need this microfilm, send it to Burlington Library, send it to the Sherwood branch in Hamilton. And they will. And you can continue your research from there. You can order multiple at a time, I think up to 5 at a time. Back here. The key one, the biggest of all here, family history. It talks about guardianship, adoption records, some health records, and these are all the guides you want to go and access at home to prepare. So if you're going to look for, like I said, the divorce records, you want to pull that one up because if you go there looking for those divorce records, from 67 to 1930, you're not going to find it. Okay, so that's that prep work you have to do to really go through and say, I'm going to look for this record, not going to find it. So don't put that on your list of priorities. Go to the next one. Okay, that's the best way to handle it. So see, I'm trying to find one that's actually interesting here. The health records are really interesting. So it talks about what types of records are going to be available. So any patient records, down here, psychiatric hospitals in particular, And you should be able to find through the description here. These are all hyperlinks. And it's going to take you over to this database, and this is called the Archives Descriptive Database. The archives are going to talk a lot about this when we go, and it talks about what is going to be available. So there's names, inpatients by index card, right? So you can actually find if the person was in a psychiatric hospital, for example. And you can search by hospital in this database and see what is there. So if I'm going to search for the Hamilton Psychiatric Hospital, there are records that are going to be there. Okay. If I look for something, I think Coburg has one. There's some in Toronto for sure, but other areas, there may not be any records, so you're not going to waste your time trying to find a record there. When you scroll down in this guide, so you'll see here, there's a section called Pathfinders. This is going to be the tool you're going to want to use before we go, and you're going to spend most of your time using these. This is going to help you prep for a particular record collection. So if I know that I'm going to look for, if I'm going to skip over the birth registrations, because I always say the key ones you're going to look at are estate files, land patents, the Ontario Land Records Index, any petitions for other lands, and I believe it's actually listed here, but there are pathfinders there. It may not be listed on the website, but for the health records. And wills are on here. There actually is one for wills, but it's not listed here. We'll make sure it goes into the email as well. So if I click on here for estate files, oh, here we go. Yeah, the will, estate files, Pathfinder. So how to find it? You're going to go look before the before section here. You're going to follow these here. So before 1793, there were the different districts in Ontario. They're housed in different areas. Generally, they're kept in the particular archives at the county level still, okay, for a lot of the older ones. The records between 1793 and 1858 here, it talks about the Archive Descriptive Database. That database on their main page, you're going to see it, Archive Descriptive Database. You can put a name in there to find out if there is any records that exist by the person's name in any court records. If the name is there, write down the name, location, number, microfilm, the reel that's there, and if it actually is a probate or a surrogate court. There are two different court types. So you want to write down as much information as you can when you find a hit, because you're going to take that information and then go find the next step. It's not necessarily as easy as Ancestry seems to make it when you go and find a record and you say, oh, here it is, click. There's actually usually two steps to this. You're going to find your index, find the record, then go to the actual record collection. Sometimes there's an intermediary index. You have to search first to take that information, and then you're going to go find the record. Okay? Land records are probably the ones that have the three steps. You're going to find them the first time. You're going to find the index to where the person is by county. Then you're going to find them actually in the register, and then you're going to want to go find the actual land patent records. So there's multiple steps to this, and these pathfinders are going to help you through that. Okay. You're going to notice that some records will not be at the Archives of Ontario. In particular, wills from 1970 to now are still kept at the local county courthouse. Okay, so you can go to the local county courthouse and ask. No, it's no problem, but they won't be here. You'll see some here. It talks about if it's York or Norfolk County for up to these years, you're going to go to the database as well, do the search, because potentially it'll be here. These pathfinders are long. I think here, yeah. So if it was probated between 31 and 70, you're going to go to the user's guide for surrogate court microfilms. Those are back on that main page where all the record collections are. And click on that, and we'll walk through. I'll show you an example of that to get yourself familiar with. Because estate files are the main thing people go to the archives for. Because number one, they could maintain, they have the wills piece of it. You can find family information about who they pass things on to. And that's really the key you want to find in those wills, right? In any estate file, is where did the things go when these people died? A lot of the time you're hoping to say, I want to get someone find my ancestor here in Ontario to get them across the pond, right, into England or Ireland. This is a really good place to start because potentially they left property to a sibling that was across the pond. You don't know, right? So there's opportunity there to find more information. And then, of course, if it talks about if it's after a certain period, you're going to want to contact the local courthouse and then make the requisition that way. So most information is accessible in some way, okay? But it's a matter of going through and identifying what record type you're looking for. I could have said, let's start with land records and gone from A to Z, but I know some people are not going to be looking for psychiatric records, right? So it's really up to you to go through the Pathfinders, identify what types of records you're going to look for, and use the Pathfinder to prep. And it really helps to detail. So when you walk in, you should know what microfilm you're going to look for when you show up. That's kind of the key you want to do. So you're not going to waste time trying to identify what microfilm you want to look at. Okay? Everything else is online to be able to find that. So when you go back to the main page, back on the screen, hang on. Am I close? No, not even close. It's just this one. When you're back on the main page, get family history a click, and then you have the option to click on the records. And we come vital stats, state files. So you'll see the Ontario Court and Probate and Surrogate Court records. So you can click on the Pathfinder or you can go right into here. And this is where people tend to get a little bit lost. They're not sure what the next step usually is. So it talks here, it is a two-stage process. You're going to first borrow and examine the index microfilm. Okay, those are generally the 2100 series. And then it'll tell you what category you're going to look for, the next stage, and then you're going to go and find the estate file to match that on microfilm. So if it was before 1859, it's divided into the two different record groups here. RG22 is their largest. And we'll talk about the different, in RG22, the record group here, you can search for court of probate records by surname. So if you go on here, I can go to A to G. It's a big page, so I'm not going to use that slider. But I know there are some records here where they actually put the people's names on the website. So I'm looking for Joseph Abraham, who is in Toronto, whose occupation was a gentleman. The date of probate was 1852. That is the microfilm I'm going to look for, okay, to see that. MS 638, Reels 37. So this helps to guide you right to that type of point. If you don't find your person in here, that is quite all right, because so if it's in the record group here, you can go down to actually see the surrogate court section. And there's another section here to actually narrow it down for other court index records between 1793 and 1858. The Pathfinders will help guide you through, okay, what do I do if I find this particular person, because this is Ludwig Jan, probably from Waterloo, number 52 in 1854. Where do I go from there? This is where people generally get stuck on this page. So when you go through, if you're looking for a will, you want to use the Pathfinder in conjunction with these pages here to identify what is the next step. And the next step is finding the next microfilm reel. One more. The main one people tend to look for here is between 1859 and 1970. Oops. okay? And these are broken up by the counties. So in particular, if we look at Wentworth County, there's the index, then the register, then the estate file. You have to go through all three, okay? So the index, congratulations. This is the microfilm. GS2, Reel 223. Between 1816 and 1968, all estate files are on that microfilm. So when people go there, everyone's going to be running for that type of film, okay? There are numerous copies of that one because it is the index for that particular county for all of the estate files. Okay, it's organized by year. So as you go through, you're going to start out 1816 and go through every year till you find the right year. It'll be the index for that year. The next step is to come down. Once you find on the index, it'll give you a volume number and a year. Yeah, actually, it gives you the year range that it was probated, because then the registers are done by probate year. So then you're going to take that, we find on the actual index, go to the corresponding year with the volume. You'll see some overlap for particularly these two. So and there are different reels. So you want to make sure when you check out the index, you actually get the volume number on there, because you're instead of going for one, you're going to go for the other, even though the years are overlapping. And then once you find on the reel, it'll give you the location of the estate file. And that'll be the actual number of the file. And you'll see here, like 1 to 55. The majority of them tend to be through here. You know, when Ontario started getting more populated, these numbers started to get bigger here. And then all of these reels are duplicate copies on the shelves. And you can pull it up, and that'll give you the image of the estate file that have been microfilmed. Okay, if you want to see the original, you can request it at that point, but because you have this information now, and that's where you can actually get the original, right? And they'll order it out and bring it in for you if you want to see it. Most people don't necessarily need that information, but if you really are sentimental about it and you want to see it, there's an opportunity here to get some purple glove care. Use purple gloves there. Okay, and it's broken out again by different different sections by different years and different microfilms. You'll see start over at 1 again, but that was for 1859. This is a really long page. I think at the bottom there's something. Lots. Between 31 and 1970, they're housed at the district, still at the county. Okay, so you can request. Yeah, they haven't been microfilmed yet, so some are still kept at the county. Some have been transferred. They just have not been microfilmed. So you can actually request these by contacting them. The reference email here, reference at ontario.ca, and they'll actually bring that copy out for you. Okay, because it is not, you're not going to find the image for it. And then after 70, they are still kept at, this is in particular for Wentworth County, kept downtown on Main Street at the Court of Justice. Okay, and it's broken up like this for every county in Ontario. So it's relatively easy. If you know you're jumping between county and county, you can actually go through each one in particular, and it's really easy to follow along. So then there are some oddities that if it happened between certain years, you're going to use different other tools. So the pathfinders are key. If you walk in and say, I'm going to try to find this in this record collection, you may not find it there. You want to use those pathfinders. I cannot stress that enough. Okay. Oops. This one here gives you a list of the available courthouses. If you're not sure where to contact, it helps you here to identify where you're going to go. Some are actually housed by the municipality. Some are still at the courthouse. Some have been regrouped, obviously. So you see Hamilton, Wentworth. You're going to go down to W, to Wentworth. You find it down here. For York, depending on when and where, if it's more city-based, if it's more the municipality, it could be between Toronto and Newmarket. So anybody who's looking for York records, if it's in that particular range, it'll be at one location or the other. So the major collections that they have at the archives, this is what I want to cover off, is the vital stats, wills and estate files, 1790 up to 1930. Of course, they are going to vary by county. Some counties weren't established that whole period of time. Newspapers, the Eaton's mail order catalogs, which is really fun to look at when you go back and look at history. And then the archives also has, again, access to LAC records, the census returns for all of the years. All of these are either available on Library and Archives Canada website for free, or they are available on Ancestry, should be for free for the ones that are LAC provided. Upper Canada land petitions, it talks here 1792 to 1867. Those are all already digitized on Library and Archives Canada on a sub-site of their site. If you need help finding it, when we get to the archives, you can totally go through and identify those there. And any passenger lists they have copies at Ontario, at the Archives of Ontario. Then it talks about records that are not as frequently used, are not kept on site. They're kept in cold storage to protect them, obviously. So those are the ones you have to request ahead of time. And I think, yes. So when you go through and identify which ones you want, what people you want to look at, what terms of record collections you want to look at, go through the website and identify what they have, right? So again, you're going to look for, if I pick someone, I'm going to look for their will from 1960, right? It will be there, but it won't be microfilmed, right? So I'm not going to be able to actually see it there. I have to order it ahead of time. So it's something I may want to take and say, okay, order it, but I'm not going to waste my time looking for it there. I'm going to look for something else. Really key on prioritizing what you want to find when you go there. Okay. Are there any questions about particular records you're hoping to find? Or any questions at all about the archives? There's lots. Again, if you're going to the Archives of Ontario, they're structured the same way as you're going to find at Library and Archives Canada. You have to pre-register to get your card to show up there, and you pick it up and you have to sign for it and whatnot. So the same type of function if you go to Kew Gardens in London, the same way. So it's structured very much the same. They're different record groups, obviously, different names for them, but they are structured the same. Where you find your index, you find your next record collection, then you find the actual record. So that's really it. Yeah.
If you're looking for War of 1812, what kind of records do they have? Like, would they have information on the regiments and the people in the regiments?
They do. There are the war files themselves. There's the Pathfinder for that. We can actually take a look. That is another one of their popular collections here.
It's under the United Empire.
Yeah, the War of 1812, yeah. They actually put, some of these are overlapping based on years. If you're looking for land petitions or land grants because of the War of 1812, those are at LAC. And they're actually digitized. There's a database on Library and Archives Canada to search. Yeah.
I'm trying to find something more specific to
Right.
parents.
Yeah. It's even, you know, if you start to look at the attestation papers for the First World War, on some of them it says next of kin, right? It may not necessarily be parents, right? So when you go back in history, that's how specific they were then, right? First World War. It's going to get a lot less specific in history, right? To the point where they never even asked, you know, truly who was your next of kin, right? Nowadays, I think they ask for your parents' names both individually and yeah. Yeah, it's so for example, and then maybe another topic to cover off Library and Archives Canada. That could be another bus trip. That would be a way to go, right? In fact, the OGS conference this summer is in Ottawa, so you definitely want to take some extra days, or at least a couple days to make a trip over there. It looks deceiving, like the Archives of Ontario. When you walk in, Library and Archives Canada has marble floors everywhere, and it's kind of like a security. You have to check in. What do you do? Same thing here. They're really friendly people everywhere you go. Treat it the same as you would your local county archives when you go. You're going to ask the same type of questions. They have the same type of answers. If you walk in and ask one of the archivists in particular, Serge, who's their senior archivist, and say, I'm looking for records for my great-grandmother, and this is her name. He's going to go, okay. And he'll sit you down, and you'll go through line by line. So again, that's the time. If you want that help, absolutely, that's what they're there for, right? So again, if you can't prep entirely from home, the archivists there are amazing for help. So you can sit down with them, and they will walk you through what is available in particular. If you ask and say, I'm looking for a company file record for an Ontario corporation from 1901, you're going to go, okay, which division? And you're going to say, I don't know. He goes, okay, this is how you're going to find out. So they do a really good job of being walking, talking, finding aids, and they're all really great.
Mike, if you order,
Yes.
Microfilm, or you know that you have to order it ahead of time.
Right.
How long? I'm thinking. So what if I find one,
Right.
and it's not there by the Saturday that we go?
Right.
How long will they keep it available for me? And when do I
Right.
go back?
Okay, so all microfilms are on site. All microfilms are there, regardless. They don't have to order anything in. It's the actual, physical, original document.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that they have to order in. And I mean, some of them are court records, right? If you want to go through and say you find a court case for your ancestor in a newspaper, right? You say, I want to find out more. You can actually go get the court case and have it ordered in. And then, I mean, it comes in a box, right? And you literally go and pick it up. And they'll keep it there on site for as long as you need it, generally about 2 weeks. They'll keep it there, so you have to go back before that time. But any of the actual tangible records, you have to order in.
Court records, like you're talking about, would they be on microfilm as well, or not?
The index to them are microfilmed. The actual physical records are not. But that's where I said the next step, if people who have never been to the archives before, this is great because you're going to walk in and understand the indexes you need to find the information, and you can totally make the request there on site to say, I want this record. And you can go back and get it. You can make the plan to go over the summer and have a look. Thursdays is their late hours day. They're open until 8 o'clock, 7 or 8, I forget. But people are there. That's when people get, they're off work, they can finally make it on their Thursdays. It gets pretty busy. So you can totally go back and order it. If you can't access a microfilm, for example, it's being used, there isn't another one available. For example, if we all walk in and say, I want land registration indexes, yeah, it's not going to work very pretty. So you may have to order it to the Burlington Library, for example, and they'll have it shipped in. You can use it, same type of thing. You return it, they'll send it back. Interlibrary loan. Yeah.
So with the stuff that we're going to look at when we're there, basically we just need to know the name or whatever it is that we're looking for,
Yep.
the real number, the microfilm number,
Yep.
and then we can go to whoever and ask them to pull that.
So you can actually walk in, if you know what reel you're going to use, you literally walk over to the cabinets, you open it up, you pick up the reel, you go to the reader. It's totally accessible. If it comes to the actual, again, the tangible records, you have to ask for their help to order it in and that type of thing.
And then from the reader, you get your whatever page number and ask them to print it, or you could use your
USB, you can crop it on the screen. Exactly, save it to USB, or you can print it on site. The key thing is for the indexes, you probably don't need to save the image, for example. But if you're looking for like a family in a certain area, and you aren't going to be able to research, let's say, all of the people in there. Let's say you find 5 people on an index, and they're all part of your family, and they all have wills, all in that county, and you go, oh, I wish I could actually go through and look at them all. You're not going to be able to make it. Take a copy of the index, save that, so when you go back next time, all the legwork's done for you, right? And now you're just actually doing physical work to actually find the record and have a look. Yeah.
There's going to be somebody there to show us how to use those machines. Right?
Absolutely. Even yours truly, yeah. Yeah, there's, I think there's maybe at least maybe, 60, 80 microfilm readers. There's lots, yeah. So it's a big room. It's used primarily by archivists of some sort, so people at the university doing research for papers. There's going to be university students that could be around. For the most part, on Saturdays, not usually that busy. So we could be, everybody here will probably be the largest crowd that there is there, obviously. We had 80 people there last October, and that was the largest group they've ever had in one day. So you can imagine it could be a pretty slow day some days there. So they love having people come. Other questions? Yes?
Can we take your camera, like not phone, like you can take.
You can take a camera, yeah, just turn the flash off. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Yes,
A slight confusion.
sure.
Somewhere along the line, you said you can't use candy.
No,
Where, but you said there's a place where you pick these up, they're on the wall,
they're on the wall.
and you said you can mark them up.
You can mark them up with pencil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just no pens. Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Old school stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm too young for it.
And if you forget to bring a pencil, there are small pencils there. They're really hard to write with if you have a bigger hand, so bring a pencil. Unless you have small hands and you're lucky. Yes.
Back in my golf
Just
bag.
a very general question.
Yeah.
Why are they still using microfilm?
So cost.
That's it. I thought, is it preserving the record better? Does it stay better than the electronic form that
There-
magnetizes or?
The sad thing is there isn't enough budget in a lot of the companies to just go ahead and say, okay, we're going to do everything right now. It's based on